Welcome to the 17th DEM I Wonder webinar. DEM has so many services, offerings, programs, and hidden gems that we want to share with all of you. So we're excited to take just a few minutes each week to highlight these features in our weekly webinar. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many exercises have been postponed or canceled. The Utah Division of Emergency Management is hosting this weekly webinar series aimed at providing local emergency managers with relevant content and opportunities to enhance their capabilities. Webinars are live for Q&A and are recorded for later viewing on the DEM website and YouTube channel. Most of these webinars are seminars or workshops with a hands-on portion which will allow emergency managers to become oriented to a DEM process or test a DEM product. Our schedule today will be as follows. We'll start with our ground rules and etiquette. Next, we'll have a brief presentation by Joel Palmer, the FEMA F.I.T lead, on I wonder what is a F.I.T. Following the presentation, there will be a hands-on portion where participants will be encouraged to test out the product or process that was presented. Following the hands-on portion of our program, the presenter will be available for a Q&A session. Following the Q&A, we'll close with a short message about upcoming webinars. The ground rules today are fairly simple. Please mute your line while the presenter is presenting. If you have a question, you may type it in the group chat or unmute at the appropriate time to ask your question. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website for future viewing. Thank you all for your attendance today. And with that, we'll turn the time over to Joel Palmer.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is going to take just a second as I shift over to share my screen. I will be joined today by the other folks that are on my team, so it won't be just me the whole time. You'll get to hear from a few other people as well. All right, so the topic, as Tracy said today, is going to be I wonder what is a F.I.T, and we'll start right out by unpacking at least part of that acronym, which is it is the FEMA integration team. And it's a wonderful acronym within an acronym, which anyone who's worked with FEMA for a little while will be used to. Before we get too far into the presentation, though, I did want to start with a recognition that today is in fact FEMA's birthday, and a lot of people find it very appropriate that FEMA was indeed founded on April Fool's Day. As you can see there, formally implemented by the 2 executive orders that were signed on April 1st, 1979. Currently, there are more than 20,000 employees across the Washington, D.C. headquarters, 10 regional offices, a few smaller area offices, and then deployed nationwide, as well as right here in Utah. We are one of the FEMA integration teams. The other thing I want to do as part of getting started here is just a couple of items. The first one, the email address there in the middle of the screen, FEMA-FIT-Utah at fema.dhs.gov. That is a team email address. You can send anything you want to ask us about to that, and it will get to all 5 members of the team who will be introducing themselves in just a few moments. So if anything comes up that you want to ask us about, feel free to shoot an email there. The other, URL down there at the bottom is something that I need to very much thank Tracy for. She put together a great little intro to the F.I.T page that's held on the DEM website that gives you a little bit of information about the F.I.T and how many F.I.Ts there are nationwide and that sort of thing. So some good supplemental information to what we'll be talking about today. So to begin with, just what is a FEMA integration team? What's listed here is a chunk out of the actual memorandum of agreement between FEMA Region 8 and the Division of Emergency Management, establishing FEMA staff to embed within DEM, which is at the very basic, that is what a FEMA integration team is. It is a small group of FEMA employees who are integrated into the state emergency management office. In the case of Utah, we have a 5-person team, and again, we'll introduce everybody as we go a little bit farther along here. And the idea is that it's a great way to supplement the state's existing capabilities and help build in areas where there might be a little room for improvement, or in some cases where there just aren't staff able to do some of the functions, and it's an opportunity to have someone from FEMA, sitting right next to their emergency management counterpart at the state level. And I can say that over the last year and a half, as we've been sitting side by side doing the COVID response, it certainly has helped that we had a few folks that were already here ready to go rather than having to bring in all new people from the regional office or from the national office, depending on what was going on. The FIT program was originally created after the 2017 disaster season. For folks who don't remember that far back, and honestly, after last year, I'm not sure I remember that far back, but 2017 was the Harvey, Irma, Maria landfall year, as well as the fairly large wildfires out in California, which could be any year at this point. But and what was found at the national level was really a recognition that it was necessary to do something beyond just having FEMA staff in the 10 regional offices, as well as in the headquarters and the other area offices. It was important to find a way to do a much better job of getting FEMA personnel and state personnel and tribal personnel and local and really all the different levels that the FEMA folks would be better integrated and know them, because it was made very clear that in that year there just aren't enough federal personnel. We really do rely on the whole community, and the best way to do that is to make sure that we all know each other, and the little bit of networking and chatting and other things that were going on just didn't seem to be getting quite there. So, as you see there in the second paragraph, integrating FEMA operations with emergency management partners is really the beginning and the end of what the program is for. So this is a chunk out of the FEMA strategic plan, which should be in line for an update soon. This one runs through 2022. And you'll see there in the blue column, number 2, ready the nation for catastrophic disasters. Item number 2 is enhance intergovernmental coordination through FEMA integration teams. So it's that high a level of a priority of FEMA leadership, and certainly here in Region 8, it has been a major priority of the previous regional administrator, Lee, when he was there, and the current acting regional administrator, Nancy, as she fills in that while we wait for a new permanent administrator to be appointed. It's a major priority of the region. It's a great way to really make sure the region has a better understanding of the concerns and the challenges that the state is facing, as well as the strengths that already exist. And as I said, that's something that's really been brought very clear as we've gone through the COVID operations, and then adding in the earthquake and the windstorm over the last year. So this spells out a little bit more, just a few of those different items. And for me, at least what I've seen in the time that I've been here, and it's now been coming up on 2.5 years here that I've been the team lead for Utah, that second item is one of the biggest ones, increasing the amount, speed, and quality of technical assistance. And what a lot of that comes down to is, because myself and my team are sitting right next to the folks from DEM, as well as the other state agencies and the local governments, we have a pretty good idea of some of the questions that are likely to be asked, and we're able to start putting together some answers even before those come in. So it means that we're not having to go through a formal technical assistance request process to go all the way up to the region or out to FEMA headquarters to find people who are able to put together answers or to provide some extra information. We're able, in many cases, to just do it within the team ourselves. So something, if folks want to stick in the chat, we'll pause for a second here, and what are some of the reasons, either the ones that I said or other reasons that you may have heard from working with the integration teams over time, both ours and other ones? What are reasons people can think of for the program. While you're pondering that, we'll go ahead and move on to introducing folks. So as I said, I've got a team of 5. The programs that we represent there were decided in discussion with the leadership of Utah Division of Emergency Management and the team out in Region 8. The other significant thing for the Utah team that I'll highlight as we move forward is not only were we the first integration team for FEMA Region 8, I was the first formal FIT employee that was hired by the region, but we were also the first team that was completely formed. The other teams that Region 8 has are in Montana, Wyoming, and South Dakota, and they've kind of gone up and down in their membership and are still working to finish out who they're trying to staff with. There's been some changes in the positions and those sorts of things, but we've been pretty stable from the beginning. We've got an exercise specialist in Jennifer Lack, a logistics specialist, Logan Sysom, or a mitigation specialist, Brandon Webb, and then recovery specialist, Emil Centers. So starting with a little bit of my background, I've been with Region 8 since November of 2018 when I came to be the integration team lead for Utah. Prior to that, I was in FEMA Region 9 based in the Oakland office for exactly 10 years. If I remember correctly, it was within about 2 or 3 days of passing my 10-year mark that I packed up my office to head out here. I worked in a couple of different programs there. Started as an exercise specialist doing both some regional and state level exercises, and then moved over to the analysis side. And the main thing I did there was support the THIRA, the threat hazard. If I can even remember it now, I honestly can't. It's been long enough that I have not directly worked on THIRA that I don't remember the acronym anymore. Threat
Identification
hazard?
and risk
That's the
assessment.
word I was missing. Identification. Thank you. I did the THIRA, the SPR, which at the time was the State Preparedness Report. It is now, I believe, the Stakeholder Preparedness Review. And a lot of that role was working with the states in Region 9. I was also working with territories and tribal nations and the urban areas that had to submit those. So making sure they knew what they needed to do for it and providing technical assistance and outreach. And then the last piece I did there was I did move up into the supervisory role and oversaw a couple of different programs, including the community preparedness, the tribal programs, and then the risk analysis piece. And prior to that, when I first got officially into emergency management, I worked for the Baltimore City Health Department. And as an example of my career going completely full circle, I was hired by Baltimore to be their pandemic coordinator during the time that we were worried about H5N1 bird flu coming in and hitting us up. So it has been about 13, 14 years total that I've been involved in emergency management, and I found myself pretty much right back where I started. A little bit about what I do. It really is, Region 8 is unique in the way that they've implemented the FIT, in that they have made the FIT team leads actually a supervisory and management level position. In many of the other regions, in fact, I think in all of the other regions, the FIT lead is really not actually a lead. They don't coordinate what the team does. Everybody just works directly with their own divisional points of contact in the regions, and how you can really function as a team in that way, I don't know. But thankfully here, that's not what we're dealing with. I am also, at least on paper, the planning and national preparedness program subject matter expert. When we added Jennifer to the team, she picked up some of the national preparedness stuff under the training and exercise side specifically. And then for the last year and a half or so, I have been the primary liaison for the region for COVID-19 support to Utah, as well as serving, at least on paper, as a division supervisor on the earthquake and the straight line wind this past result, there hasn't been a real big piece for the operations side on that. So that is my background, and I am going to take advantage of passing it over to Jennifer to also mute my phone for a minute. I don't know if you guys can hear, I do have a toddler here at my house, and he's yelling for some attention. So I'm going to pass to Jennifer and introduce yourself, and after you've done that part, pass it on to the next, and we'll hopefully be back in a moment.
Sounds great. So my name is Jennifer Lack, and I'm the training and exercise specialist as part of the FEMA integration team here in Utah. So I have been in this role, it'll be 2 years in July. I actually relocated to Salt Lake City, Utah for this position. My prior background includes both nonprofit and state government emergency management work. So most recently, prior to my current position, I was employed by the American Red Cross as a disaster program manager. In that capacity, I spent a fair amount of time deploying to major disasters, so including Camp Fire in Paradise, California, as the lead PIO for the American Red Cross at the Joint Information Center at the Incident Command Post. I also worked in Houston following Hurricane Harvey and quite a few other disasters in that role. I also led preparedness programming for the American Red Cross in the state of Wisconsin. Prior to that experience, I worked for state government. So I was employed by Wisconsin Emergency Management, so that's a state agency, as the community preparedness coordinator. Some of my accomplishments there were creating a business emergency operations center, formal public-private partnerships around the state, and I was pretty involved in public information during activations, as well as planning, training, and exercises. So that's not my phone in the background, so I don't know, but somebody's not muted, but I don't think that's my phone. So as the training and exercise specialist as part of the Utah F.I.T, one of my big responsibilities and the reason why we have a training and exercise specialist position here was to lead planning for the Wasatch Range Catastrophic Earthquake Plan exercise. So that plan was supposed to be a full-scale exercise in May of 2021, but that exercise has been rescoped to be a single rehearsal of concepts that it will take place in November of 2021. As everyone is probably aware, COVID has impacted our business lives in terms of, what we're working on, some more than others. So last year, I deployed to DR 4525 to help support both planning and logistics for COVID-19, and did that role from March 2020 to June 2020. I'm currently enrolled in a Women in Leadership program at Cornell University, and I'm hoping to bring sort of a mini-series course working with UDEM, specifically Chris Repp, and a little bit with Judy Watanabe, to offer just a mini-series of, hey, here's some best practices and things that I learned, because it is a kind of a time-consuming and spendy course, and so I figured it would be great to be able to extend that offering and that learning to as many women leaders in the field of emergency management as possible. I'm also enrolled in the National Emergency Management Advanced Academy. Excuse me, I forgot to put management in there, screwed up the acronym, and hope to complete that in June of 2021. So that is it, unless Tracy, did you want me to answer the exercise question?
I think you can go ahead and do this one for the audience.
Okay, sounds good. So who are the best points of contact to participate in planning or conduct of emergency management exercises in Utah? So I would say that the answer to this, or the best answer to this, would be if it's a state and local led exercise, definitely you want to reach out to Tracy Bodley and Chris Repp. If it's the Wasatch earthquake exercise specifically, at this juncture, it would be best to reach out to me directly until we get moving forward towards a place where the state wants to be the contact for state and local. So that's my answer. And pending any questions, I'm going to head it over to Logan Sysom. Logan, are you there?
Any questions for Jennifer? Great. Well, thank you very much, Joel and Jennifer. And first off, I want to say thanks for this opportunity. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Chris Rep, for the opportunity to share who we are. There's nothing better than taking the chance to talk about what we do and of the resources that we can provide and the service that we provide as well. So first off, thank you for this opportunity. I have almost 18-year background in emergency management that has given me plenty of opportunities. I've been with FEMA Region 8 as the Utah F.I.T logistics specialist for almost 2 years now. Previous to that, I worked as the Utah Division of Emergency Management Be Ready Business Program Manager. And so most of you know me, or at least have heard of me through different channels. All of my emergency management background has, except deployments out of state, has taken place here in Utah. Previous to working with the Utah Division of Emergency Management, I worked almost 10 years as the director for the American Red Cross Disaster Relief and Emergency Response Services. So I've had certainly a great opportunity to work with the state. In fact, in all my areas in working with emergency management, it has been in engaging with the state of Utah. So when FEMA provided me this opportunity, or came knocking, and I knew that I would still be able to work with Utah Division of Emergency Management, I really felt it was just the best of both worlds. The DEM has a great team. I've enjoyed working for them and working with them for almost 18 years in one capacity or another. As I mentioned, I've had various opportunities to deploy to national disasters. A couple dozen. Some of the more well-known ones have been Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Patricia, as well as many others. And there's no better way to learn how to do stuff than to be doing it. And so I'm grateful for those opportunities. I'm grateful for the experience that working with these three great organizations has given me. Next slide, please. So as a logistics specialist, I get the opportunity to, in many ways, continue to do what I've done in working with Utah Division of Emergency Management and being a liaison and being able to help connect the dots between various issues. I really enjoy the opportunity to coordinate between DEM logistics and FEMA Region 8 logistics, working closely, especially this past year with COVID-19, with Lori Herrera and Rhonda Warner and Dave Poppelmeyer before he was blessed with his retirement, right before COVID got really crazy. And it was of great benefit that I already had relationships with the state folks, so that I could transition very easily to many of the responsibilities and ways in which I could provide support. While I was working with Utah DEM, I had the opportunity to serve as the supply chain resilience lead or point of contact for the state. And so some of that transitioned over, and I've had the opportunity. In fact, I'm right now sitting on a training for a logistics supply chain resilience with Braden North, and many others, just being able to be kept in the loop on what kinds of things the state needs. I'm able to coordinate in this role. Different acronyms, I'll spell them out for you. DMP means the Distribution Management Plan, and I'll briefly talk about that. TFA means Trans Fees Analysis, Lifeline Workshops. ISB means Incident Staging Bases. FSA, Federal Staging Areas, SSA, State Staging Areas, and CPOD, Community Points of Distribution. So I'm working closely with Lori Herrera and the DEM logistics teams. We're able to, and we've been revising it from year to year, what's called the Distribution Management Plan that takes all of those things into consideration. The Distribution Management Plan is a really, really big component, and we're continually revising it, myself and Lori and the planning team at DEM, so that 7 main areas are continually considered, and any changes to those areas within the planning process are updated and timely. For example, the 7 main areas are requirement defining, resource ordering, distribution methods, inventory management, transportation, staging, and demobilization. And those are all key areas in being able to provide staff and stuff resources in times of disaster. And the state, I just want to give a great shout out to the state of Utah. Right now, the state has done a fantastic job through the many long nights, many hours, many months, and the more than a year of operations for COVID-19 and their distribution management, not just planning, but distribution management practice. I am that's something that I'm sharing with other states within the region, is how great the state of Utah has been performing with meeting the staff and stuff needs of COVID-19. So I get to serve as a FEMA logistics subject matter expert, whether it's in reality or on paper. I'd like to believe that the last year has really pushed my my expertise to a new level where it wouldn't have otherwise, as well as applying my other background. But I also know that there's a lot more that we can all do and learn together, us as FEMA, us as DEM. And so when you see that phrase, subject matter expert, we're all learning and seeking to achieve that subject matter expertise. And then continuing to participate in catastrophic planning activities and trainings, supporting Jennifer with a number of her initiatives, and continuing to support ongoing operations for COVID-19, as well as any other ongoing disasters that we are currently having or are trying to support. And I think that in closing on my part, the biggest thing that I would like to say that my job really is it's about building relationships, maintaining those relationships, and doing the best that I can to serve my my customer, and my customer is the state of Utah. My customer is the Utah Division of Emergency Management, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to do that in this role. So I guess I'll read out this question, right, Tracy? Or do you?
Yeah, I think this is a question for you to read, and then the audience can respond in the chat.
Yeah, how does a distribution management plan, and keep in mind I gave you 7 points, so I gave you a few insights into it, maybe a cheat sheet for the test here. But how does a distribution management plan or a DMP support state and local operations during a disaster?
So you can go ahead and put an answer in the chat, and we will move to Brandon.
Okay, good afternoon. It's really good to see some familiar faces, or familiar profile pictures at least. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Brandon Webb. I am from Bountiful, Utah, born and raised. I started with FEMA just over 2 years ago. Funny enough, my start date, my 1-year anniversary was on March 18th, 2020. So if anybody knows why that's a significant date, you can put that in the chat as well. But I just passed my 2nd year anniversary at FEMA. Here's a quick, just little brief synopsis of my experience in emergency management. So like I said, I'm with the FEMA integration team mitigation specialist. So I work on all things mitigation and try to help the state and local communities while also helping the region at the same time, kind of that go-between as we've been describing. Before that, I worked at the Utah Division of Emergency Management. Like Logan, one of the greatest benefits of this position was to be able to still work with the Division of Emergency Management in Utah. Building great relationships there before and working with such a great organization, such great people, it was too difficult to leave entirely. So by doing that and staying within Utah and being able to work with these people who I've gained great relationships with and who are so fun to work with, that it just was the perfect fit. So within the Division of Emergency Management, I started out working in the floodplain management and F.I.T section within mitigation. And before and after that, working in an emergency preparedness planner planning division. And then kind of an additional note, just over a year now, I'm a current search and rescue team manager or member. And so that I know a lot of people, when they think of FEMA, they think one of the kind of latest to respond. If FEMA responds, something bad's happened. And that's typically mitigation. We're very before a disaster or very after a disaster. And so with that search and rescue, I wanted to kind of gain that firsthand experience as well. So it's been a great thing to see that before and after, and how mitigation plays a role before disasters and things like that. So part of my roles as a mitigation specialist, one of the main roles is serving as a liaison between the DEM and other Utah personnel and Region 8 mitigation, trying to open up those lines of communication, make sure that everybody's on the same page, that things are going smoothly, and that there aren't any roadblocks. That's one of the big pushes for the F.I.T team, is to open up lines of communication so we can help each other and we know what each other's doing, and things seem to work a lot better that way. Filling in as needed during disasters. I know that for everyone on here, I'm sure they did something that was maybe outside of their normal duties when COVID hit and with the earthquake, and that's just kind of, they say being FEMA flexible is doing that, filling in where needed, and that's what all emergency managers do. When you're needed, you fill in to help the task. So some of the mitigation programs in FEMA, it's kind of broad. It's hard to become an expert at all of them. So I try to do my best to kind of be a jack of all trades. Within Region 8 mitigation, you have hazard mitigation assistance, you have risk map, which is mapping risks for flooding. You have the earthquake program, mitigation planning, flood insurance and outreach, and other programs. And so it's really broad, and I try and do the best that I can to help out in each section wherever needed. Providing assistance in mitigation meetings, trainings, and other state-led events. I do my best to support the awesome mitigation team that the state has, whether that be trainings or meetings or things like that. If there's something that we can help you and your community, then I know that we're happy to do so. Additionally, efforts in the floodplain management and NFIP related training. Sometimes it's difficult to get to all these different places, so all the help that we can have on that is great. There are also many best practices that the state of Utah has done, and so highlighting those on a national stage is great. It shows what we're doing here and the unique challenges that Utah faces, and the unique responses and ideas that we have for reacting to those challenges. And then also working with the DEM earthquake programs to support initiatives on unreinforced masonry structures. So I don't know if I imagine some of you have seen the recent unreinforced masonry structure strategy that just came out. It's a little long, but it's a great read. And there's always ongoing efforts on how we can tackle that uniquely Utah problem. So I think I have a question on the next slide.
Let's see. Joel, are you able to advance the next slide?
Okay, great. So this is kind of an open-ended question. If anyone wants to answer in the chat or email me directly, like I said, my mission is to help whatever I can to get the state of Utah prepared for disasters, whether that's small or big. And I do so by supporting the state. The state already has an amazing mitigation team. I'm very lucky to work with them. And I know they're also very willing to help out and do what they can. So my question is, what are the aspects of mitigation that you have the most difficulty with? And what sort of assistance might help? And that could be education, outreach, planning, funding questions, or anything like that. So if you have any questions or any way we can help, then I'm happy to do so.
All right. And do we have Emil ready on the line? Your line may be muted. Emil, I'm not sure if you're trying to talk, but your line is currently muted.
Yeah, I was actually trying to talk for him, and somehow mine muted itself as well. Or you may have muted me when Galen was screaming. All right. Emil's got a couple other calls, so I don't know if he's going to be able to join us. He was trying to listen in, but may have had to drop off. He's got you can see his background there. He's been with FEMA for quite a while. He came to the
Joel,
FIT. Yeah.
your presentation is blurred at the moment.
Uh-oh. I wonder what's going on with it. It's just
There we go.
on my. Did it pulled itself back together? Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Trying to do too many things at once, so I can't see the slides. There we go. Yeah, Emil came to the FIT most recently. He was working as a reservist doing mitigation work out in the field for a number of fairly major disasters. And you can see prior to that, he'd spent quite a bit of time as a DHS, FEMA, and university instructor covering a lot of different emergency management topics. And stepping a little farther back from there, he was in law enforcement with the Department of Education or Department of Energy. I'm sorry, I got my DOEs mixed up. Before transitioning out of the law enforcement realm and over to more general emergency management. I'm not going to go through exactly every bit of things he works on here. As with many of us, his last year or so, he's been very heavily engaged with the both DEM and other agencies here in Utah in support of their COVID response, especially on the public assistance side, and working to try and smooth out some of the wrinkles in the FEMA funding process there, as well as working with the regional counterparts and the state folks on the two other disasters, on the Magna earthquake and on the straight line winds. And I know there is some consternation that in a couple of weeks, Emil will be stepping away for a little while to participate in a training program that the region has made available. That's going to be it's a fantastic opportunity for him. It just comes at unfortunately awkward timing for the disaster. So he is doing everything he can to work with the region to ensure that the folks that are coming in to take over for him on those three events really are going to be up to speed in terms of where things are currently in the process and some of the challenges that we've had to work together to overcome. Probably the biggest was the very large vaccination project, excuse me, that just kind of disappeared into a hole in the FEMA funding pipeline for a little while. The question Emil asked that I asked on his behalf is, well, it's a two-parter here for folks to think about. What's a good way to begin preparing for recovery from disaster? And a second component of that is, when should you begin preparing for recovery? So I'll put this one up briefly as we get ready to transition out of the slides and into the Q&A side. You can see there all of the direct email addresses. In most cases, FEMA email addresses are pretty straightforward. It's a first name, last name, but both Brandon and Emil get to have special email addresses where they've got a little something extra added in there. Again, the one that we put up at the very beginning, the FEMA-FIT-UT address does go to all 5 of us. So that's another way to reach us if you're not quite sure who to reach out to. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so everybody can see anybody that they want to. And I'll say we can turn it over for questions and answers if anybody has any questions they wanted to ask us.
Great, thank you, Joel. It looks like we did get a couple folks answering some of the questions that you asked earlier in the presentation. So go ahead and either use the raise your hand feature, or feel free to ask a question or put it in the chat. And I am going to actually ask a question. My question is, how do, sorry, lost my train of thought for a second. How do we keep track of what's happening related to the Wasatch Fault earthquake scenario exercise? I know that we've had a few changes in what that big exercise might be, and what the status of it is currently. How do we find out more about that, Jennifer?
So this is Jennifer, and that's a great question, Tracy. And I, first of all, just want to say I really greatly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate everybody's flexibility regarding all the changes to the exercise. So I know if you've been tracking the exercise and all the changes, it feels like, you know, you probably have whiplash trying to figure out what's going on with it, just because it went from a big exercise to a series down to a single exercise. So the best way to keep track of that will be to contact me directly if you have any questions, and we will be ramping up efforts to produce more timely updates regarding the status of the exercise. So right now, the region, so Region 8 will be supporting a single exercise event. It will be a rehearsal of concept occurring in November of 2021. We did have a concepts and objectives meeting planned for mid-March, and we unfortunately decided to cancel that due to a reallocation of key staff to actual response activities. But the best way is really going to be make sure that you're on our distribution list. I will say that I met yesterday with Andrew Batten, who is the exercise officer out of Region 8, to talk about the best strategy to clean up our distribution list. So where we landed, because I wanted to provide excellent customer service to all of our stakeholders related to the exercise because of all the changes. So where we landed is I'm going to be taking the distribution list that we have, filtering it by agency. If I can identify the correct POC for the agency, I will walk through calling those people. So I'm actually going to place a phone call just because I don't want email to get lost in people's inboxes, just to verify, continued interest to participate in the ROC, make sure that I have the appropriate POCs listed, make sure that I have the contact information for all the POCs, and also sort out what level for each person they want to be involved in the exercise. So it could be that this person will be involved in exercise planning, and I'll use a real live example maybe. So Tracy Bodily will be involved in exercise planning, and Bob Carey from UDEM is going to be involved in conduct. So that's kind of what, and I might have gotten that wrong, Tracy, so don't hold me to it, but that's kind of what I hope to do, to be completed no later than the end of April, just to make sure that going forward, we have a super, super clean distro list, and everyone that needs communications regarding the exercise will receive them. As of right now, we have no events planned with a date, so nobody needs to be concerned about, I don't have a meeting scheduled for the concepts and objectives meeting upcoming because it hasn't been set yet. So that's kind of where things are at. And again, I truly appreciate everyone's patience and flexibility. So I relocated for this exercise. So in terms of, how disappointed I am that we had to rescope, it's been, really disappointing to me. I understand the whys, but it's kind of a big professional hit to have moved to another state to do something and then had to significantly scale it back. So I'm pretty sad about that, but I'm hoping we'll produce the best rehearsal concept in November, and then that will be something we can use to build on going forward in subsequent years once we're not super busy with COVID. But if my answer gave more questions than answers, feel free to jump on and ask questions if people are still confused or need additional clarification.
Thank you, Jennifer. We really appreciate that you've kept your hands on this exercise process throughout COVID. Last year was a very complicated year, and we just appreciate that you're staying on top of it. And we'll keep listening, watching for calls from you or emails, and thank you for that. I do have a question for, let's see, Brandon. My question is, what kind of mitigation activities are eligible for FEMA funding currently? And if I've never applied for mitigation grants, where do I need to start? What kinds of things are fundable?
Yeah, great question. So there are lots of different mitigation actions that communities can take. It can be anywhere from improving zoning and ordinances to make a community safer, building a retention basin or a culvert or other flood mitigation measures. For fire, you can do a project removing vegetation to create defensible space or to protect critical infrastructure. And then in some cases, there are other projects that can be done, like you could do a permanent generator at a critical facility like an emergency operations center. So there are a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different projects that have been funded. Unfortunately, not every project that gets applied for will be funded. So the best thing is to, if you haven't applied for one before, is to contact the state. Like I said, I'm part of a large team at FEMA, as well as the great mitigation team at the state that's here to help in whatever way we can, to start an application for a project for your community. There are some things that people think are mitigation actions that are not. Purchasing a fire truck, sandbags, evacuation planning, things like that. They may seem like mitigation because sandbags may prevent flooding or a fire truck can prevent a larger disaster, but they're actually response actions and they're not eligible for mitigation funding. So if you have an idea, if you have something that your community's been facing that is something that will that may make a disaster worse, and there's a solution for that. Then contact me, contact the state, and we can get you started on that.
Thanks, Brandon, and thanks for that clarification about the difference in some of the mitigation things that seem like mitigation items, but really are response. That's a great point. I think we're running out of time, so I just want to check with the audience to see if there's any additional questions anyone has. Well, as always, as Joel mentioned, there is the group email address that you can email them. This recording will be on the DEM webpage as well as YouTube channels so that you can go back and review those email addresses. And we'll give everyone just a second more. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Joel, Jennifer, Brandon, Emil, and Logan for your presentation today. As a reminder, this webinar and all other webinars in this series will be available on the DEM website at dem.utah.gov/exercises or now at dem.utah.gov/iwonder. Our webinar next week has been canceled. However, our webinar on April 15th will be a presentation from the training and exercise section at DEM. If you have any iWonder topic suggestions, please reach out to tbodley@utah.gov to have your topic added to our calendar. We're always excited to help you explore and get to know all that DEM can offer the emergency management community. And until next time, keep wondering.
Thank you, Tracy. I hope you have a good day.
Thanks, Jennifer.